And what about the claims about reduced disease risk? Because we have all sorts of little trials that show reduced body weight, increased satiety, improved lipid profiles, improved blood glucose, better insulin sensitivity, less inflammation, decreased blood pressure in people going paleo versus people eating Western-style diets. So why are we seeing these favorable results? Well, we're seeing the favorable results because the paleo diet of today removes refined grains, refined sugars, refined fats and oils, or they're supposed to, fast foods, fried foods, processed meats, high-fat dairy, and alcohol. That's what they remove in these studies. And so, of course, you're going to get some improvements compared to a Western diet. However, is it really short-term gain for long-term pain? And this is something I would argue. While many paleo diets do induce weight loss and favorable lab results in the short term, there are really significant concerns about adopting such diets in the long term. Paleo diets are high meat diets. That's what they are. They're high in animal protein, they're high in agrochemicals, they're high in carnitine, which is converted to TMAO by gut bacteria, which is highly atherogenic. They're high in endotoxins, which is the outer cell membrane of gram-negative bacteria that can leak into the bloodstream and be very inflammatory. They're high in environmental contaminants, all the persistent organic pollutants. They're high in heme iron, which is a pro-oxidant. They're high in nu-5-GC, which is a pro-inflammatory molecule, and nitrosamines if they're processed. They're high in products of oxidation, they're high in saturated fat and cholesterol, and they cause an upregulation of cancer-promoting genes. So that's what we're doing when we boost meat intake. How much meat are people eating paleo actually consuming? Well, the typical recommendations are for 30% protein. So in a 2,000 calorie diet, that's 150 grams of protein. In a 2,800 calorie diet, it's 210 grams of protein. So assuming that 80% of their protein comes from meat and 20% from plants, we're talking about 16 to 22 ounces of meat a day. 16 to 22 ounces. How much meat is actually safe to eat? Well, according to the most cited nutrition expert in the world, Dr. Walter Willett from Harvard, if you step back and look at the data, the optimum amount of red meat you eat should be 0. In 2016, the Mayo Clinic put out a study, an analysis of 6 studies with over 3 million participants. They said there was strong, consistent evidence that increased intake of red meat, especially processed red meat, is associated with increased all-cause mortality. And we see that in meta-analysis after meta-analysis. Red meat is consistently linked with all-cause mortality, with cardiovascular disease, with cancer, and with diabetes. And in 2015, the World Health Organization actually declared processed meat a group 1 human carcinogen, and red meat a group 2A, or probable human carcinogen. A group 1 human carcinogen is in the same category as cigarettes and asbestos. So this we know. So let's talk about plant-based versus paleo-keto diets briefly. We have very clear, consistent evidence that whole plant foods are protective to health. Heavily processed foods, fast foods, fried foods with added fat, sugar, and salt are damaging to health, and meat, especially processed meat, increases risk of disease. We know that. And because we know that, national and international dietary guidelines are starting to reflect this reality. What you need to understand is these diets are taking out some of the most protective foods on the planet, foods that are consistently associated with disease risk reduction. And the evidence is so strong for that now that national and international dietary guidelines are starting to reflect this. The World Health Organization in the 12 steps to healthy eating, step number 1 is to eat a nutritious diet based on a variety of foods originating mainly from plants rather than from animals. Number 1. The FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, in Plates, Pyramids, and Planets, they highlighted international leaders that are promoting largely plant-based diets because they have advantages for health and the planet. In Germany, choose mostly plant-based foods. In Brazil, eat foods mainly of plant origin. In Qatar, emphasize a plant-based diet. In the UK, eat more plant-based foods. We're seeing this over and over and over again. Cancer Organization, eat a healthy diet. This is the American Cancer Society with an emphasis on plant foods. And the World Cancer Research Fund, eat mostly foods of plant origin. The American Institute of Cancer Research, choose mostly plant foods such as vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and cut sugary drinks. If we look at the Dietary Guidelines for American Scientific Advisory Committee in 2015, they say that a dietary pattern that is higher in plant-based foods, such as vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and lower in animal-based foods is more health-promoting and is associated with lesser environmental impact than the current US diet. Then we see this brand new Eat Lancet Commission from 2019, and they basically say universal healthy reference diet is one that increases vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and decreases unhealthy foods like red meat, sugar, and refined grains. So this is universal, and now in Canada, I'm a Canadian, and I was rejoicing. Very recently, we put out our new food guide. And our new food guide is reflecting this knowledge as well. We did not listen or allow input from industry on this food guide. And so the guide is mostly plants. Half the plate vegetables and fruits, a quarter the plate whole grains, a quarter of the plate your protein sources, whether that be beans, nuts, and seeds, or some animal products. Dairy is nowhere to be seen except for as part of the protein group.